So I thank you, but I want to take your questions, all right? Yes, sir. So the action plan for Catholics, let me address that one. First, we have to be educated. We got to be educated. That's why I wrote the book. That's why we have all these learning tools. We have to be educated. Because when you're educated, you can then be bold. What does God give us? He gives us a spirit of what? Courage. Who said courage? Free checkbook to whoever said fact checkbook to courage. Okay. God gives us a spirit of courage, not one of timidity. If a white woman can go ask for a 3-hour appointment with a black minister whom she doesn't even know, that's not this. That's God. Thank you, Jesus. So that's part of my answer to you is we must get educated, because when you're educated, you can be bold. You can stand on firm ground. Now, the other part was, about excommunication and all that. You know, I'm going to give you a soft sell answer, because my job is to educate America. But because I'm a returned Catholic, I want every single American Catholic, every priest, every bishop, every cardinal, anybody who's Catholic to know what I went over tonight. Because anything less, if they don't know this, they're standing, I believe, on bad soil, on a bad foundation. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And Ephesians 5:11, the Apostle Paul says, have nothing to do with the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And that's what we're doing. So me as a Catholic, that is my action plan. If you all want to join us, we want you. We want you. We want you. So go to HoseaInitiative.org. Sign up for our newsletters, and we don't bombard you, okay? But and then if you're really eager to be because we're literally looking for people on every county level across America, okay? Yes, sir.
What'd you think of the Gosnell movie?
What did I think of the Gosnell movie? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Who's seen Gosnell? The movie? Oh, good. That's a lot of people. Everybody here needs to see it. It ought to be shown like in a parish, just like this. You know, I think the hardest thing is that everybody thinks it's going to be gory and yucky. It's not. Gosnell is about the media cover-up, the cover-up of the worst serial killer in America, Dr. Gosnell. Make sure you buy a copy of the DVD to support. And I've got a talk radio show on America Out Loud, and it's called What Have We Been Wrong? And Monday I actually interviewed Ann, the co-writer and the producer. She's awesome. And God, I asked her, how have you seen God show up? She's like, Terry, I could be interviewed for 10 hours. God keeps showing up, moving it. So I love Gosnell. Everybody buy it and go see it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm assuming most people in here heard what he said. But share us out on social media. We have great content, beautiful content. And lady over here, yes. She just asked a great question. She said, the Reverend Jesse Jackson used to expose all this about black genocide and all this. Well, guess what? Oh my gosh. It's almost like somebody paid you to ask that question. Okay, remember I said I went to the vice presidential debate down in Farmville, Virginia? Well, I had passes to get into the spin room afterwards. And I've never been into a spin room. It was quite interesting. And I am not exaggerating. I turn around, and there's Jesse Jackson about from here to you. And I thought, I didn't think twice. I said, well, there's Jesse Jackson. Let me go ask him the question. So I walked up to Reverend Jackson. I tapped him, and he spun around, and he looked at me. And I said, Reverend Jackson, years ago, you used to expose Margaret Sanger and black genocide. You called it out for what it is. How come you don't do that anymore? And Reverend Jackson looked down at me, and his face didn't change. I thought he'd make a really good poker player too. And then all of a sudden he said, oh, I have a radio interview to go do right over here, but I'll be back. I had called him out. So, I mean, it's called selling out. It's bottom line, selling out. If you Google LifeSite News, Terry Beatley, Jesse Jackson, you will love it. Because the lady with me, an older lady, she saw me looking up at him, and she's like, well, let me get my phone out. I guess I better take a picture of this. So it's me looking up at Jesse Jackson, asking him that question. There was a question over here. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, her question is, she thought that the motivation behind the pro-abortion movement was like the health and well-being of the mother, just get it legalized and all this. You got different dynamics going on. If you're a man like Lawrence Lader, and you're already fooling around on your wife, and you just believe in that kind of a lifestyle and all this, abortion is like the man's best friend, right? Okay, so you got that dynamic. It's an easy way for men to get off the hook. But for Dr. Bernard Nathanson, he really thought he was doing the right thing for women because he had seen many women, not thousands, but dozens over the years, come in with botched abortions. Absolutely. It was not a sinister thing for him, like I think a lot of the other people involved. To give you an idea, the National Organization of Women, when it first started, Betty Friedan did not have abortion in the platform of National Organization of Women. She had a lot of women like you and me in there. They wanted equal pay and whatever, something. But abortion was not one of the items. Guess what? Lawrence Lader worked on her for 1 year. So by the time they had the second National Organization of Women conference, Betty Friedan had already sold out to the abortion movement, and it was very devious. I don't have time to explain it, but she rammed it into the platform of national organization. And women like me back then, we left. We were like, forget it. We don't want part of this National Organization of Women. So it's multi-complex, yeah, okay? But for Bernard Nathanson, he thought he was doing the right thing. Was there a question back here? Yes. And I 100% agree. And what this man just said, just for the record, is that we have to get out and vote pro-life. We must vote pro-life. We must educate ourselves, teach others so that they will go and vote pro-life. Yes, sir. Okay. See, he just asked, are any of these, the communist ones in the hierarchy, are they being called out? And I feel like for the purpose of this event, there are news sources out there that are exposing a lot of what's going on. Let me just end it there, because this could go on forever. Yes, ma'am. But I totally agree with you. We must get out and vote pro-life, teach other people to do the same. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I actually write a little bit about that in the book, and so I'm gonna try to encapsulate what you just said. Thank you. So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying and then asking is, how do we teach? How do we educate when so many of the people are wounded and hurt? Am I getting this right? Are wounded and hurt, and instruct in such a way that it can transform a culture? Am I getting this right? No?
Yeah, it's really bringing the society
Okay.
to a rebellion path.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. And that's what I'm saying is we're almost better, if you will, that Roe v. Wade doesn't flip tomorrow, because the nation, look at the nation. Well, what is it, 50, 51, 52% or whatever it is? It's way too big that they don't understand. They are without knowledge. That's why I say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The Apostle Paul tells us, have nothing to do with the evil deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So let me give you an example. I was asked in Fredericksburg, when I lived there in 2010, 2011, to come to this prayer group, and they wanted me to teach about the history of abortion and black genocide. I didn't know what the women who make up this group, I didn't know if it'd be white, black, Hispanic, every mix in between. Well, it turned out it was a group of about 20 African-American women. And these are prayer warriors, lovely, beautiful women. And so I taught on the history, and then they said, well, give us specific things to pray on, because that's their whole purpose, is to learn and then pray. So I gave them the specific things to pray for. And they broke into groups of 4 and 5, and I was with one of the little groups. And then there was a woman in my group who began to cry. And then I heard a woman in another group begin to cry, and then to weep and to wail. And this went on until it kind of simmered down. And then in their little huddles, they shared. And let me tell you something beautiful happened. Because I think with most of these, they had never shared about what had happened to them. And then it kicked them into action. And then what happened is one of the young women, she got back in touch. She's like, I just want to tell you. She's like, I learned so much. She was in my group, okay? And she had in New York City, at the Margaret Sanger Planned Parenthood facility, she had killed 3 of her babies. But God had given her a free ticket to fly back to New York. It just happened to be in that time frame I met her. It just so happened, God gave her a ticket to fly back to New York to visit with her family, I guess at Thanksgiving or something. And she called me to say that she had stood out on that sidewalk and counseled women as they walked by, and she saved 1 baby. That is what happens. The educational tools over there, we've got to give people tools that they can use. So it's the education. I don't know how else to go about it. If you read my book, you're going to understand. I don't have time to tell all the stories, but all I can tell you is when you love other people with the truth, it will blow your mind what's in that book, how people responded. And the man back there about vote pro-life, you've got to read it. Woo! It's an awesome. Okay, yes, ma'am. Cynthia. Here it is. Okay, the question is, what can we do with our youth, our Catholic youth? You know, they're poised, they're right on, and you know, of course, we know about Students for Life. A lot of kids are getting involved with Students for Life. I'm about these young people have to be educated. Read the book. To give you an idea of how this is actually working, unsolicited, 2 teenagers, they happen to be Catholic, one from Oregon, one from Houston, Texas. They reached out to me after they'd gotten the fact check booklet and they read the big book, and they're like, Miss Beatley, how can we help? They self-educated themselves. Now, they're the cream of the crop. Homeschool, wonderful homeschool kids or young women. And then, but together, they formed a book club. They formed a book club. And every Tuesday or Wednesday night, I'd be on the phone or Zoom, and we're having a book club meeting with these kids I'd never met before, and they made it through the whole book. They read every single appendix, okay? And so the next thing we're going to do is, so then this is what Andrea wrote. This is, it's very simple. It's 1 hour, maybe a little bit more per chapter. There are only 4 chapters, and it draws the youth into the story of Dr. Bernard Nathanson based on the book, and it's 4 things. How did culture affect Dr. Nathanson? Worldview, how worldview impacts our nation, Marxism, postmodernism, secular humanism, biblical worldview. What is injustice? What does injustice look like? And how to be a courageous witness for life. Because if Dr. Bernard Nathanson can become one of the boldest witness for life, well, our teenagers can do the same. But we want them to be educated. So, I mean, these young people, as God would have it, I end up meeting the 2 attorneys who represented Norma McCorvey when she tried to overturn Roe v. Wade in 2003. They wrote the appendix in my book that I've run out of time for, so you're just going to have to get the book so you can read it. Okay? But also, Alan Parker said, Terry, you need to put in your book her affidavit, the affidavit that Norma McCorvey wrote to the Supreme Court in 2003. And it reads, you got to read it with a tissue in your hand. It's a 9th grade education reading level. It's astounding. Every Catholic should have read Norma McCorvey's affidavit. So tools, that's all I'm saying. That's all I can say is social media. I'll come into, I just got invited to speak to 1,300 Kansas Catholic teenagers a year from now because they do a big youth rally in Kansas. So I'll be their speaker, and we'll introduce all this stuff over the next year. So to me, it's educate, and if they're educated, they can stand firm, and then they can go into their schools and their spheres and take over. Yes, ma'am. Have I been to the Twin Cities, Minnesota? And no, I have not. But if you have an opening there, please get in touch with me. Okay, I would love to go, yes. Anybody else? Is it midnight yet? I have like no idea what time it is. Russell. Right, and I think I'm assuming people know that, but thank you. Just for the record, what he's saying is that the reason why the states are so geared up and active right now and doing all these crazy infanticide laws, it's because they're anticipating Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. And that's all the more reason we must get the people educated. I'm telling you now, we're going to have civil war on our hands if we don't educate this country. And there is a huge swath. Just take Catholics alone. There's a huge swath of Catholics all across America, bishops, Cardinals, invite me into your diocese. They must get educated. And we will see Catholics turn in droves to support pro-life candidates. Get me into your diocese. We've got a top-down, bottom-up business plan. We will go anywhere where there's top-down support. And where there's not, we're going to build from grassroots up. But it's a whole lot easier when we have top-down support. That's why I'm so grateful for Archbishop Joseph Naumann's endorsement on the ministry, the apostolate, and my book. It doesn't get any better. Right when he went in there, he agreed to meet with me, and 10 days later, he sent 2 beautiful endorsements. Yes, ma'am. Right. Okay, so everybody can hear what you're saying is in order to battle this, it's not political alone, it's not education alone. We have to be fortified with the Eucharist, praying the Rosary, and I do try to pray daily. Can you imagine the attack? Woo! I could write another book about that attack. Seriously. But I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. And I have time for probably one more question, and then you've got to go get a book. And then also, before I forget, I have a note here to tell you to invite everyone to go to the Hosea Initiative Facebook page and give us a like. Okay? Give us a like. All right? And also consider sharing this broadcast. When it comes out, make sure you share it. Yes, sir. And let me just piggyback on what you're saying, and I totally agree with you, and that's why I want everybody to read the book, and if we end up selling out, go to abortionking.com and tell your friends. Everybody, our goal is to one day have 60 million books sold, whether it be the fact-check booklet or the big book or any combination in between. Because if we can do that, that's one book for every baby who lost his or her life through abortion since 1973, and that means we have educated a heck of a lot of people. So the reason I'm mentioning that is I had no idea when I moved to Fredericksburg that I was moving into the most pro-abortion, anti-parental rights state senator's district who had been there for 28 years, okay? 7 terms, he was up for re-election. And that's the setting of the book. So what I reveal in that is what happens when you love other people with the truth. I thank you all. Please, I'll sign books over here. Have me back. Thank you. Let's go win.